All right, this is A Heart Beats Twice, a Blood Knight adventure in the blasted world of Crifoth. We start on this trail winding up the volcano of Mount Kest, now a blasted crater of what it used to be. This is where it all began over 100 years ago. This was the place. You four are not only Blood Knights, but you're the elite of the elite. You are the most skilled, most capable, most competent members of the Blood Knights. And you're taking on this task, this mission, because no one else can. Scouts and spies of your Blood Knight order have noticed that there's lots of demon and slave activity going back and forth at the summit of this volcano. Much more than normal. Something like this can't bode well. It's your job to figure out what's going on and probably put a stop to it. The air is thick with smoke and smog, billowing out from the ashy top of this volcano. As you take one step in front of the other, you see the remains of what used to be. Among the pillars of volcanic rock and molten magma flowing, you see the charcoal stumps of trees of a once bountiful forest, now reduced to ruin. The stones beneath your feet are hot and warm, penetrating through whatever boots you may have, blistering your feet, if not for your tiefling resistances. The air itself is thick with the gross and thick smell of smoke, barely able to fill your lungs with the bounty of air. It's just too much. But nonetheless, you press on up this cliffside. Tusk, what do you look like as you're ascending this mountain path?
This is one of the largest tieflings that you may have seen. He has a charcoal ashen skin and white long hair and black sweeping back horns. And he has a chain adamantine armor strapped to him. And he's got blood painted across his body. He is a Blood Knight. And he knows there's only going to be one way to find out. It's going through right what's in front of us.
And how about Malithus? What is he like as we ascend this mountain?
What little of his skin you can see is incredibly pale gray, with piercing scarlet eyes looking out from under his head covering and his face wrap. Mostly in grays and reds for the clothing themselves. He has his bow out and is rapidly scanning back and forth, looking for anything that might present itself as a target.
And how about Red?
Red is walking solemnly up, looking down at the ground, but no one's sure why, as a crimson bandana covers her eyes, blue stone gleams and is embedded into her forehead. And on her, she carries no armor, no weapons. She walks barefoot, but doesn't let out a single yelp in pain. As they make their way up the mountain.
And Cruor.
And all this noise everywhere of cracking stone and magma, but Cruor can hear like loudest of all, just this like kum, 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 like the heartbeats of the people he's with. It's one of the side effects of his blessing or affliction, depending on your point of view. He's deeply aware of blood, and he's trying to concentrate on his surroundings as opposed to like the torrent of blood that he can feel in his companions.
And as you four take each step higher and higher, climbing this mountain, this volcano, bits of rubble and rock crack from the cliffside, tumbling down in the distance, somewhere off. And just the searing sound of lava just roaring out of some newfound fissure or crack exposed. This region, while desolate and dead, seems very much alive in how it pulsates and just is so active beneath your feet and all around you. The ascension takes longer than you'd imagine, longer than it feels. And as you come to a miniature summit on the side of this volcano, you can see the expanse of this caldera, this crater of what used to be. It seems oddly tranquil here. Very little activity, despite what the reports have said from your peers. Whether you're too late or you're just not able to see it through the thick smoke and smog and soot of the surroundings, you're unsure. In front of you lies this roaring, rushing river of glowing red magma, sweeping down the side and roaring off and crashing to a further abyss off in the distance. And the only path across this bridge seems to be a narrow, thin adjutment of stone, unbroken by the flowing of magma itself. A bridge over the lava. But in this heat, as you just feel this hot air wash over you from below, I would like all four of you, please, to make Constitution saves with advantage because of your fire resistance.
$23.
And so Malithus feels it the most. Perhaps it is his bleached white skin that makes him susceptible more than the other three. Perhaps it is something else. He feels the heat the most, and he would take 4 points of fire damage as just these geysers of steam and hot air just blast him from beneath.
And just so I make sure I'm doing this right, because I'm not 100% yet on the blood grit system, where does that come from?
Grit gets damaged first because
Okay.
it's your resolve, your stamina, your will to continue.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And then giving his racial feat, would he have that?
Yeah. I'm not counting all your resistances and stuff.
Okay.
And so you four come to this bridge. You see just the makeshift path. It's been carved away, perhaps by the sweat of slaves' back, perhaps by a great beast, perhaps just by nature itself. Continue onwards on the other side of this bridge. What do you four do?
I assume we've all kind of worked together for a while.
Oh, absolutely. The numbers of the Blood Knights are few. The casualties too high. The recruitment's too low. You all have known each other for however long you've been a part of the Blood Knights. Essentially, you can count the number of Blood Knights you know easily on your hands. Essentially.
Okay.
Kror would like look at the bridge and look at his companions and think, it's not me who's going first. And he would think, I guess he would look around and see which one of them's going to budge. He would stand there. He's got this like staff in his hand, and his like knuckles would kind of like tighten around it and then relax and tighten around it and relax in this sort of like, I guess he would call it like a tick that he has when he gets nervous.
Red, I think, without waiting for anyone else to decide, would just kind of sigh. She says, I will go. I will go first. And she would start taking a few steps towards the bridge, placing her feet almost gingerly on it, as if her words are kind of seem stronger than her mind actually is.
You placed your feet upon the beginning of this bridge. Kind of press a little bit firmly on your, to test it. It holds up fine on your weight. It seems solid and sturdy.
And she would just she would go about halfway until she would kind of look back over her shoulder and just exclaim, "It seems sturdy."
Kror would take a step, although not towards the bridge, towards the actual edge of the cliff, I guess, and he would simply step off the side. He has these boots made of a particular demonic skin that allow him to walk on air or fly, and he would kind of like walk next to the bridge.
Don't trust me, do you?
Don't take too many chances if I can avoid it.
She would nod. That's probably wise.
Tusk would probably used to be seeing Malethus? Mal. He'd be used to seeing Mal hanging back and well, what are we standing around here for? He'd start walking across the bridge as well.
And then Malethus will do a quick 360 and just kind of scan the side of the mountain behind them just to make sure nothing's creeping up. And then with caution turn and start to follow the rest of them over the bridge.
As the three of you begin to cross the bridge, I would like all three of you, discounting Kror, to make dexterity saves, please.
9.
Tusk, as you take further steps on this bridge, you feel the stone crack beneath your weight. Small bits of it crumble off and plunge deep within the magma below. You're able to keep your balance, not fall off the edge. But you're startled, perhaps even, pull back a bit, jumping back, as just these segments and bits of the bridge itself just kind of crumble off beneath your feet. And you can see all along the bridge's edge, along its length, more of these rocks are beginning to fall off. There's this thick rumbling sound beneath. A rumble that at first feels like it's imaginary. But you can see, all four of you, you can see how these bits of rock and stone and pebbles kind of shake and vibrate. That this rumbling is very much real. The lava begins to flow in odd directions beneath you, flowing away from a point, as what looks to be thick stone begins to emerge from its depths. What do you... anything you're going to do?
Tusk would start running and yell towards Red, "Out of my way, girl, coming through!" And he would start running to get on the other side.
Yeah, and Red would actually step aside quickly just as he was running past her and make sure that Mal would also get across before she would begin to run after them.
Mal will just run as well.
And I'd like initiative checks from all four of you, please.
$13 for me. I'd use the chat if I could.
Yeah. Alrighty. This form in the magma begins to take shape as it emerges foot by foot, as just these rivulets of magma itself pour off of its rocky surface. A great fiend emerges from the depths of the lava. Its form begins to become apparent. It's massive, towering over 50 feet tall. It's got this dark volcanic rock for hide, many limbs made of the same material, and these piercing blue eyes. 2 sets to make 4 total, that each seem like one of them is locked onto you. It lets out an unearthly bellow. It sounds like a combination of a great beast's roar and an earthquake itself. Malithus, what do you do as this great creature emerges from the depths of this magma?
Mal will keep running until he gets completely off the bridge. He doesn't feel that standing on something that precarious is a good idea with this thing beneath them.
Yeah, the bridge itself is not that long. Perhaps 60 feet in total. With your 30 feet of movement, you can easily get to the other side.
Okay, then he just immediately starts pulling arrows from his quiver. Let's see here. A 24 and a 24.
So both attacks are able to land and hit this creature. This towering behemoth made of magma and stone.
Five and then 10.
And these are just regular arrows or anything?
They count as +1 magical arrows.
Okay. So your first arrow seems to bounce like just bounce, unflinchingly or undamagingly off of this creature's just form. The other barely chips away a tiny fraction of it. Seemingly almost ineffective. Your arrows.
This thing has a hell of a hide.
With its great fists and claws, it rears up and just begins smashing through the bridge with one fell blow, cracking it and splitting it in half as both halves begin to plummet towards the magma. Both Tusk and Red, you're still on this bridge, and I would like the both of you please to make dexterity saves.
Not it.
And so, Tusk, you would begin to plummet as you reach up to grab a stony outcropping to hold your weight, but it breaks loose, and you begin to fall into the magma.
I'm gonna use my ability as an Eldritch Knight to reroll one failed save once per day.
Awesome.
And that's not much better. So, same thing.
Would I be able to make a dex, because we're fairly close, to see if I can kind of reach out and grab onto his arm?
Yes.
So just another dex save?
Yeah.
So that's a 24.
So Red, you can describe, Megan, you describe to me how Red makes it to safety and also keeps Tusk from plummeting to his death.
Well, since Tusk was ahead of Red, and she felt the wind of the incoming attack of this beast, and so she was able to jump to safety, and I think she would immediately just sense, probably with her the stone in her forehead would just kind of burn, and she would just quickly sense that Tusk was falling back. And I think Tusk, maybe from your point of view, you have that, you're grabbing onto that stone, it falls, and then just as your arm is outreached, Red's hand would come and grasp your wrist, saving you from falling, but you're probably just dangling there. She would yell to the others, "I've got Tusk! Help me pull him up!"
In the meantime, like a fly buzzing around a great creature, this behemoth takes a backhand at you, Kror, just trying to swat you out of the air. And its massive hand smashes into you, tossing you aside like a rag doll, and dealing 20 points of bludgeoning damage to you as you just get launched far away by the swat. And it is your turn, Kror.
So Kror is going to fly diagonally up and away from this thing, backwards and upwards, and then like muttering foul words as quickly as he can, I'm going to use the staff in my hand, which will begin to like glow. I'll like press my thumb. There's a particular, almost like a thorn with a little blade into that, and blood will infuse the staff. I'm going to point that. I'm going to use a sorcery point to cast Cone of Cold as a quicken spell, and then I'm also going to cast a cantrip of Chill Touch on this thing. So it needs to make a DC 17 con save, which is probably going to make for Cone of Cold.
Yeah, I got a 26.
Okay, so it'll take half of 57, which I guess is I don't know, 27 or 28 or something. And I got a 21 to hit it with Chill Touch.
And a 21 would hit.
So that's 15 cold damage on top of the 28.
Holy crow. You guys are gods. All right. So as you do this 1-2 punch of these freezing magics powered by your own blood. Tusk, you're dangling by the hand of Red over this abyss beneath you. What do you do?
Could I pull myself up from her with a
strength check? Yeah.
Strength? Straight strength or athletic? They're the same. It doesn't really matter. 17.
And I say because Red is helping, you can even have an advantage on that.
Modify 20.
So you make it up onto the ledge on the other side, on the far side, with this abyss of lava beneath you, but you're up and you're on top of what seems to be solid stone for now.
And this thing's still surrounded by lava?
It looks like it's wading through a kiddie pool based on its size. But yes.
Oh, jeez. I'm gonna try. How far is the other side of the bridge?
The bridge itself was about 60 feet in length. So, based on the tiny little outcroppings that are available, it would be about like 55 feet.
I'm gonna move my full normal movement to whatever's left over after pulling myself up to try to get off the bridge. While in the meantime, I'm gonna cast magic missile towards this monstrous fiend. I just auto hit it for. So 3 of those. For 12 damage, force damage.
As powerful as your magic missiles may be, some of them seem to almost bounce and reflect off the shiny, smooth surface of part of these creatures. Go ahead.
You can finish.
I'm done. Yeah.
I use my bonus action to summon my greatsword with my Eldritch Bond.
What does this greatsword look like?
Oh, it looks like a shard of obsidian. It looks even like it's too large, even for this giant of a tiefling to wield. And it has runes carved in it that glow like the lava beneath us.
Awesome. And Red, what do you do?
How far away is it from the bridge to the landing?
Your little outcropping of bridge itself there's only about like 5 feet of it left. like between 5 and 2.5 feet left of actual bridge. So it's hardly anything there at all.
Okay, so yeah, she would just kind of walk, well, not walk, get to the other side. She would say to Tusk, she would say, might do you well to be not as hasty next time. But she would, not even facing the beast, I think, all of a sudden, how far away is the beast from the outcropping, like from the land that we're on?
Probably about, so this thing is massive, so it's probably about like a 20-foot distance between like the solid ground and like it, but it's also like 40 feet wide, 60 feet tall, all that shenanigans. So yeah, about 20 feet distance to actually hit it from where you are.
All right. She is I think she would say out loud, she's like, I think it would be in our best interest to try and get away from this thing as quickly as possible. We shouldn't waste our energy on this. We have bigger things to deal with. And yeah, that's her turn.
All right, Malithus, it is your turn.
So Malithus thinks that Red is entirely correct, and this is probably something that's, if we can even deal with it, it's not why we're here, so there's not really any point. He will continue moving away from the outcropping along their path and fire another couple shots just to try and help cover them. Not that it seems to really be doing much good, but more out of reflex than anything else. 18 and 19.
Both of those would barely even scratch and effectively miss this creature.
Okay, then that's him done.
Sorry, I got this really bad cough. This creature, it sees you like partially fleeing, and it sees this fly buzzing up ahead, blasting it with this cold magic. It reaches up towards you, Cruor, and tries to grasp you in its molten hands. I need you to make it either an athletics or an acrobatics check to escape
I'm
its
terrible at both. Don't worry about it. It's not terrible. It's about 16.
Yeah, so it got a whopping way better than that. So you just feel this stony prison wrap itself around you, and it just crushes you with this strength of a mountain. It's going to do another 20 bludgeoning damage to you.
Oh dear.
And then with this magnificent bellow, not magnificent, that's a kind of a bad word, but there's this terrifying bellow, as you can see its molten core through its mouth and throat. Just at this loud decibels. It grabs a chunk of the mountainside, this boulder, and launches it towards you. Listen, all three of you, Red, Tusk, and Malithus, as it takes it a few steps, wading out of the lava and onto the stony earth above. And so this boulder is just launched towards all three of you. Dexterity saves, please.
$16.
15.
Both Tusk and Malithus are not able to leap away in time, getting partially hit by this boulder, dealing to each of you 10 points of damage. But Red, whether a supernatural gift or just luckiness, she is able to dodge it in time.
How much was it for?
A 10 points of damage.
Okay, thank you.
Kruor, what do you do in the stony prison?
So I can see like the staff that I'm holding. There's like blood running down the rivulets that are specifically carved into it for that purpose, and like he can feel like bones cracking as he's like held. But he's going to begin like shouting this incantation. He's going to cast Thunderstep, which means I teleport to an unoccupied space within 90 feet, and it needs to make a con save.
It gets a total of 15 on the con save.
Oh my god, amazing. So it takes 22 thunder damage. I will vanish from its grip, and I'm going to just go 90 feet straight up in the air. So it should be out of its reach now, hopefully. Straight up into the air. Then I'm going to use my movement to go another 30 feet up in the air. And that was my action. That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to hang out up there. So I'm 120 feet above it now.
All right.
And I cross my fingers.
Tusk, what do you do?
Is there any way to get within striking distance of this beast?
It essentially like stepped out of the swimming pool, this little kiddie pool of it. So yeah, it's like beginning to emerge and stand on the stone that your guys are all on. So you can like strike at its feet or something.
Okay. I'm going to bring up the blade to my lips as I whisper in Infernal the words for booming blade. And I run up and I strike at its foot. And I get an attack with that. Nice. For 28.
Yep.
I gotta reroll that one. Not that time. For 11 damage, I believe.
So you strike this
no.
beast.
Sorry, 14.
14 damage? Okay. You just crunch the side of this thing's ankles, the closest thing within striking distance, with this loud booming blade of yours. And as it begins to continue to emerge, kind of grasping onto the side of this, large rock abutment and just pulling itself out of the lava. You can see like the lava running off of its legs as it emerges, molten hot from its submersion.
And then I get an extra attack.
Sweet.
For 16.
16 would be a miss.
All right.
Just bouncing harmlessly off of its just obsidian skin.
All right. Good for me right now. And it has the booming blade effect on it, which is if it moves.
Yeah, awesome. Red.
Red is going to run away. She is going to kind of turn and just begin running up the path, encouraging her teammates to essentially come with her. But yeah, she's just going to move the full 100 feet she can.
Holy crap, 100 feet. All right, yeah. So you just, with these quickened strides, you can just easily outpace and almost even like, round a corner, and you're essentially disappeared.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If it's possible, if she would be able to, this path, is it kind of like walled?
Yes, it'd be walled. Other sides, these, massive, stone and rocky outcroppings up in the sky, and maybe like 40 feet in height or 10 feet in height, kind of ranging in spikiness.
Yeah, I think that she would try to climb up, just so that she can still see kind of what's going on, keep an eye on her teammates, but it's still like far enough away that if they they do decide to run, then, she's there, just have that vantage point.
So if
I guess not see, but sense.
If I understand correctly, you don't even have to make an athletics check, right? Because of your monk ability? Just climbing vertical surfaces?
Yeah, I think you can just like walk up walls.
Yeah, I totally can. Just walk up a wall. Yep.
So you do that. You just bound up and climb this rocky stone effortlessly with your weird power you have.
Yeah, and the stone on my forehead would just like kind of glow, glinting, almost as if she would like scan her head across, and it would almost like flash, as her gaze would be passing over her teammates. But I mean, yeah.
And Malithus, you're also in this kind of a pseudo canyon, walled off on either side by these, tall stone walls, as this creature is emerging from the magma behind you and beginning to, surface itself and come, I guess ashore would be the closest word. What do you do?
At this point, Malithus is going to take Red's cue and just sprint. So he can make it 60 feet further down the canyon.
So you're able to progress far enough, and you kind of see Red up top on one of these one of these walls of stone, looking down. The beast, the fiend itself, continues to, completely surface itself, coming onto the stone ground, completely unsubmerged from the lava. And it gives you a walloping kick, Tusk, with its massive feet. And it hits you, colliding its massive stone foot.
Use my reaction.
Sure.
To cast shield.
That's +5 to AC, right?
Yeah, 4 right now, I believe.
It's +5. I think.
That actually turns this hit into a miss. So you can describe how this shield of yours would stop the incoming blow of its kick.
His eyes glow and his hand starts to write something in infernal in the air as a ethereal shield deflects the strike.
And I imagine a bit of like the material it's made of, the foot it's made of, kind of like almost caves in, kind of just like denting from this magical shield you conjure. Just as you make almost a little miniature crater in the side of this creature's, leg.
Perfect.
And in its massive hands, it reaches down to pick you up off the ground. I'd like you to make either an athletics or an acrobatics to flee its grip.
All right, let's go athletics. 17.
It's able to pick you up in one fell swoop.
All right.
As it also grabs you in its massive hands. It begins to crush you like it crushed Kror. And you take 20 points of bludgeoning damage from this crushing. And Kror,
Right.
you're 120 feet in the air as you see this creature completely lift itself out of the magma and harass and subdue your companions. What do you want to do?
I want to go home. Is what he's thinking. Like, this is not what we're here for. This thing was not part of the plan. He's like really far away from it now, and you can see that he is safe, but his friends are not. He also realizes that all of the abilities and powers that he has, if he's going to blast this thing, they're also going to blast Tusk. And so he's really kind of stuck, to be honest, in what to do. I think he's going to try. Yeah, I needed to make a wisdom save, please.
You got a total of 22.
Son of a bitch. Okay, so nothing happens. I point to staff and I begin to give it commands, and I realize it's far too powerful for that to work. And I'll just move then, flying my speed kind of towards where Red and Mal are. Still staying up in the air though.
Yeah, and despite this creature acting pretty bestial, it's got a strong mind and a strong cunning, a supernatural mind, essentially, of that of a fiend. You can feel its oppressive power match against yours and battle you back. But from this vantage, you're able to see kind of the sight, the scene beyond in this crater that you guys have found yourself in. This caldera. It looks just molten earth cracking and peeling and just sundering the obsidian black ground. But at this caldera's center is this monolithic pyramid seemingly made of black stone that just spans a towers in height from its surface. It's too far off in the distance to make out many details, but it seems to be just something that's, very, very powerful and omnipresent. And it's something that wasn't there before in the many scouts, informations, and spies notes and such. This thing hadn't existed beforehand. Tusk, you're in this thing's grip. What do you do?
Can I try and strike at him somehow?
I'd say that you probably have enough wiggle room. Maybe your torso is free. You got your arms that are able to move around above its kind of fist. So yeah, sure.
And he never moved.
Just no, not even. Just looking down at you and just smashing you.
I'm going to attack at him.
Awesome.
With my greatsword. For 19.
19 misses.
Ouch. I'm gonna try again. For 24.
And 24 hits.
For 11 slashing magical damage. And then I'm going to cast Frostbite.
Awesome, yeah. What's a
And
spell
then,
attack?
what's that?
Is it a DC or a attack?
Yeah, and he'll have, since I hit him, he'll have disadvantage on spells from me until the end of my next turn.
All right, cool. So what kind of save is it? Or what's the DC?
Double checking. I'll have to double check. Thought I wrote that down. Oh, sorry, I muted myself. The DC would be 14. Yeah, disadvantage.
So I got a total of 11. So it takes the full brunt of your frostbite spell.
Nine. Sorry, this Google Hangouts is killing me right now.
So 9 points of cold damage.
Yes, sir.
All right. Red, you're atop this kind of cliff, 40 feet up off the ground. Your stone lets you kind of observe your surroundings a bit. You're able to see or sense Malithus beneath you. Fleeing the scene, you see or you sense Tusk in this thing's grasp. And you sense Kror just above head, blasting it with, magic to no avail. What do you do from this vantage point?
How far away am I from, like, the fiend? Like, kind of its hand? If I were to, say, jump?
About 60 feet. Since your last turn you ran 60 one way and then 40 upright, so.
Yeah. If I were at the edge, like, how I would have to jump 60 feet?
I could imagine that, like, you could run across perhaps this, this cliff face and get closer to this creature and close the distance of the jump, making it more like 20 or 30 feet or even smaller.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so. First, you can just see her kind of. She begins to tense her muscles, kind of one by one. This tenseness kind of ripples up her body, and as it does this, you can see these spikes kind of start protruding from various points, like her calves, her back, shoulders, forearms. Her horns begin to lengthen and darken into this like obsidian black color, and you can almost see like this red glow through her blindfold, and then she begins to run. And then she is going to spend one key point to try and jump, because it doubles her jumping distance.
Awesome. So what is your jump distance then after all that said and done?
So jump distance is just your strength ability score, right?
Yeah, your score then, and doubled because of your key points.
Yeah, so that's 20 feet.
This is going to be a precarious jump. I'd like you to make an athletics check, please, just to see if you can really span the distance, as you're a little bit shy.
Yeah, I got a 14.
That's going to be good enough. As you just leap from the ground, your muscles kind of buckling and tensing, and you just launch yourself from the black earth, and you're able to make it to this creature's fist that's clutched around Tusk.
I think that's probably my action, and then I cast form of the fiend, which is a bonus action. So I think I'm good. That's all I can do.
All right. That brings us to Malithus.
Seeing that Red has turned around, the advantage of being an archer is Malithus doesn't have to get any closer. So he's just going to start pulling arrows from his quiver and try and plug this thing. 18 and 22.
And so the 22 would hit.
Okay.
And actually find its mark on this creature.
Then 12 damage, max.
Whew. Your arrow embeds itself, cracking these flint-like flakes from the surface of this creature's hide, and digging a bit deeper as the arrow just crunches and sinks in, and you can see this molten magma kind of oozing from the wound. Not unlike blood on a mortal, blooded flesh and blood creature. I would like Tusk, please, to make a strength saving throw, as this this behemoth continues its clutch on you.
13.
You take another 20 points of bludgeoning damage as it just continues to crush your bones and squeeze the air out of you in this giant hand of its. As well as it sees Red kind of grasping onto its fist, and it takes its other free hand and just kind of clasps its hand together in a big thunderous boom. And Red, you're able to just sway and maybe, swing away in time as just this thunderous crash of its two fists hitting each other sends this shockwave through the air, but does not hit you in the slightest. Cror, what do you do?
So Cror's been watching. Does it look like it's like he has hit it with ice magic, as has Tusk? Does it look like that is making it more upset than the rest of the stuff that we're doing? Do I get the impression that we're hurting it, or is it just seemingly going to continue? You know what I mean? Just observing, kind of.
You would notice that the frost and cold magic that you've been cast has almost been combated itself just by the intense heat that this creature radiates. And so it's whether you're actually cooling it and being effective or it's completely ineffective, it's hard to tell, but it's not obvious for sure whether the cold is actually effective or not.
Okay, I'm gonna. Oh, I hate this. I hate being a wizard. Or a sorcerer. There's so many options, and they all seem bad. So easy to just hit something with a sword. I'm gonna. Screw it. Yeah. I'm gonna quicken a spell again, and I'm going to require it to make a wisdom saving throw, please.
And it got a 16.
Up in the air, he's like laughing like a maniac. He like gives this command for it to stop, and I've cast Hold Monster. So it's paralyzed. It can make that save again at the end of its turn. While it's paralyzed, it can't do anything. Attacks have advantages against it, and any hit is a critical hit.
Holy shit! Right.
Yep. So then I'm gonna use, because I used Quicken, I'm gonna now smash it with Chill Touch. Hopefully that will hurt it.
I got advantage and a auto crit. Sweet.
So it's a 20 to hit, which I think is
Yep.
what I need, right? Okay, and it's going to be 2d8. It's going to be 48 because of the crit. It's 22 necrotic damage.
22 necrotic.
Yes, sir.
All right. You just, as you continue to blast it with your magic, you can feel the creature weakening as your chill touch pulls a bit of its vita, its energy. It's fueled by this molten core of its, but you can feel it kind of weaken under the grasp of your spell. But it stands fast, just paralyzed and held in place. You can see that it struggle and flex beneath these fabrics of lines, kind of holding in place, but it's held fast for now.
I would call out to the rest of them, like, now's the time for the big guns!
And now it's canon that Crifoth has guns. All right, I would like Tusk. Tusk, you can make your turn now.
Oh boy. I'm gonna just try to swing away at it then and try to hopefully hit so I can get a crit.
Yeah,
And
so
try and get
advantage.
Alright. Natural 20 anyways.
Sweet.
Um
So when that 20
So-
does auto blood damage,
okay.
which I guess we should have done for Lloyd's crit too.
So you want me to roll them twice? Or double it or what?
No, so crits just do the regular damage, but instead of hitting
Okay.
grit, they go straight to
okay.
blood.
That's right.
Yeah.
So 9 plus 6, 15.
So
And
15
then-
straight blood damage. Sweet.
Okay. And then I have a nice little trick here that I picked up since you let us. Is it below 100 hit points? If so, I can expend a charge, and it has to take a DC save.
Are you able? Does the effect give you the ability to know whether it's below 100 or not?
It just says if you score a critical hit against a creature that has fewer than 100 hit points, it must succeed
Oh,
on
okay.
a DC
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you critted. What's the DC?
15 con.
It passes
Okay.
with like a 22.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna attack again
Awesome.
for 16. That's gonna miss, but it's at advantage for 19.
19's a miss.
Okay, so that's my extra attack. I'm going to action surge.
Yeah. And so these misses that happen are not like you fumbling and not even striking. It's just this creature is so durable and hard that your strikes are ineffective on it.
And that's not working. And I don't get to bonus action attack because I didn't cast a cantrip. So that's everything I got right now.
All right, Red. You're hanging on to this creature's fist, but it's stopped flailing and moving. As you can see, it's just paralyzed in place. What do you like to do, Red?
She's just going to go ham on its fist to try and get it to release its grip on Tusk. So sorry, I didn't quite hear Lloyd. Was it advantage on attacks?
Yeah. You advantage on all attacks, and if any attack hits, it's an automatic crit.
All right. Well, she is going to attack 4 times.
Yes. Yeah. Now laugh like a maniac.
That wasn't a maniac, but haha. So that's 1 hit so far. That's 2 hits total. If the DC is 20
Yep, DC is 20.
or AC, sorry. All right. So,
They're auto crits, so they just do normal damage, but they do straight to blood instead of grit.
right. And then every time I hit, I do an extra 1d6. Okay, math, 1 second. So that's 9, 17, 28 damage.
All right, Megan, you can describe for me how Red defeats this behemoth made of molten earth and stone that arose and smashed you guys to smithereens. How do you defeat this guy?
So she's just trying to attack the hand just to try and get Tusk out of this thing's grip. And I would like to think that she kind of stomps down, thinking that it was a miss, on the hand itself. But her foot just kind of just hits that sweet spot, kind of like an artery or some type of vein, and it just begins to just cover both her and Tusk in this demonic blood as it, just comes pouring out, just spurting out.
I imagine even that you sever this creature's hand from its arm as this crack of the impact just sends these fissures and lines across its forearm as the hand itself splinters and breaks off, falling to the earth along with Tusk. And this creature kind of reels back, just like clutching at its forearm, letting out these bellows of pain and anguish and anger as just the splurts of thick ichor, demonic blood just sprays the entirety of the battle scene, just flailing about as it reels back, taking a knee back into the magma and begins to kind of sink within and submerging itself once again. And so Red and Tusk, you're actually falling from its hand. Tusk, I'd like you to make a dexterity or a strength save to get yourself out of the hand before it falls to the ground and crushes you like something terrible in the impact of the fall.
I'm not that cool, sorry. I felt.
Yeah, so you just plummet inside of this, just grasp it. It's still holding on to you, despite, being severed. And same with Red, I believe you get like what? Just you don't fall painlessly. You fall painlessly or something. Are you muted?
I think.
So I can reduce the fall by 50 points. Fall damage. I can reduce it.
Okay, yeah. So you just land with a graceful whatever. Don't even take injury.
Superhero landing.
Yeah, just the shockwave as you land. But Tusk, however, you're going to take 15 points of bludgeoning damage as you just plummet to the ground and make a kind of miniature crater as this creature's fist just lands in a heap of dust and soot that just kind of breaks up from this crash. And now we're out of initiative order as the battlefield comes to a still in silence.
I'm gonna pry myself out of the fingers of the grip of this severed hand and snort
Redwood.
out the.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I totally interrupted you.
I'd snort out the blood from his nose and then take a deep breath in and use my second wind for 16 points of healing.
Yeah, Redwood kind of half-heartedly put her hand out towards Tusk to kind of help him out. But you can see that her attention is already on the blood just kind of pouring out of this demon's hand. And as soon as she saw that Tusk was okay, she would immediately go and just start feeding on this severed hand.
And I'd like you to make a Constitution save, please, as you indulge in the tiefling indulgence of blood feeding. While I try to find the actual PDF that gives me what the heck things do.
I've got it open here if you need it.
Okay.
You need to roll. It's a D12.
So DC is something like 8 plus the difficulty here. Half. Oh yeah. So back to your hangouts. You got a 17. 17 is good enough. Yeah. So you are able to take on the power of this fiend, not failing it and not being subdued by its just ultimate fiendish power. I would like you to make a D12 roll, please. As you now gain a blood addiction effect.
Yeah, I can actually make 2 because of my monk blood affinity. I can make 2 D12 rolls and choose the one that I want.
Ooh.
So I will do that.
Awesome.
And likewise, anyone else that wishes to partake in the feeding of this demon can also make a con save. And the DC would be 16.
Nat 1.
Oh my. And so you would take... Holy shit, that's a lot of dice of damage. You take 36 points of necrotic damage on this failure. You can have it, though, because of your tiefling resistance.
All right.
And I'll need you to roll a d8, please.
All right, I got one of those. 7.
So you fall unconscious for 7 hours. As you just pass out from this raw power, as it just knocks you cold and causes your body to contort and stroke as you lose consciousness from this awesome power.
Winning.
So I got a 20 on my con roll to drink some demon blood.
So you, Lloyd, get to roll a d12, and you get that effect on the blood addiction table.
Number 2.
You gain a new supernatural power. You choose a first level spell on the Warlock spell list. You may cast that spell once as a first level spell, using Charisma as your spellcasting ability.
Ooh, cool. Any first level Warlock spell?
Yep. And so, Megan, you chose the number 3. So you no longer feel pain. You have resistance to all damage done to your grit. And these effects last until you either take a short or long rest. Or I guess for you, Lloyd, if you cast a spell, it's gone.
Okay, sure.
I'm taking a short rest right now.
Just pass out. And Malithus chooses to not partake in this?
Yeah, he's going to abstain this particular time. He walks back to where everybody else is and just kind of shrugs as he sees his companion basically, keel over into a pool of blood and just start sleeping.
You probably see the two of us, Red and Krura, with handfuls of demon flesh and just greedily devouring it, and just when he's swallowed a big chunk of demon blood, he would just stand back and as if he is perfectly rested and ready to go. You won't join us?
No, not this time. My palate's slightly more refined than that. Find me a slaver and I'll be all over him.
Red would nod and she would just say, all those years from abstaining, thinking that there was goodness in it, that there was purity in it. I must admit, I don't know what had come over me. This is too good. And she would just kind of stand up and just kind of crack some muscle, some crack her fingers and neck. She would say, "Well, that was unnecessary, but pretty rewarding in the end."
The enemy doesn't rest, and the enemy doesn't have a fine palate, and the enemy doesn't make decisions like that. And if they don't, then we can't afford to either.
Well, then how about we say that I'm going to abstain since one of our number is already an incoherent, drooling pile. And I'd rather we don't risk half of us being unconscious while we're on this mountain.
Do what you like. But you can see there's a real like desperate need in Kuror for the blood, and he's trying to like rationalize that. You know, like he knows it's dumb, but also he like is crushingly addicted. So he's like trying to rationalize it.
Red would kind of nod her head over to Tusk. Just, so what are we going to do about that?
Oh, what can we do? Wait, I suppose.
There's really no knowing how long, but I suppose.
It's well to get out of this. Find somewhere more sheltered.
Yeah, did you see anything when you were up there? Any form of shelter or anything?
Did I wonder?
There would have been many adjustments and outcroppings and caves carved out, perhaps by a slave's toil, perhaps just by nature itself, dotting all along just this area itself. This place is pitted and creviced and just a gnarly sight. So yeah, there could be some kind of shelter or cover, as well as returning from whence you came. I mean, that would involve crossing that bridge that no longer exists.
Sure. And when I was up there, I saw a relatively clear path, I guess, towards the pyramid, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So then I would maybe suggest that we like drag, probably all three of us have to because he's huge and heavily armored, Tusk like towards some sort of like cave that we can sit in for a little bit until he recovers.
And Lloyd, I'll get you to describe what this cave is like as you kind of pick it out or point it out that you've spotted from high above enough high vantage points. What is this cave like?
Yeah, there's like a natural. It looks natural, but who knows? Just like this gap. Looks like almost a cut in the rock, like maybe it was made by an enormous sword. So you'd have to like squeeze through, but once you're in, maybe about 3 feet in, it opens up into this like pretty tiny, dank, stinking sort of sulfuric little room that is sheltered, although in no way comfortable.
And this place feels like an oven, just with all this heat radiating and channeling in this little fine space. But it's at least a bit of cover from any passing patrols or just the elements themselves. And so if you decide to wait out the time it takes for Tusk to recover, you could take a short rest to do so. And you can spend one of your hit dice to regain all of your grit. Not just, a die roll, but like all of it. Because you're able to catch your breath. As it takes 8 hours to do so.
Do I have a choice in the matter?
I would imagine that you probably could also take part in this short rest, Tusk.
Sweet.
And as
The
you,
short rest is,
ahead.
sorry to interrupt, 8 hours, right, in Crifoth?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. In a later version, I think we're gonna add like a little quick rest, which is like a breather of like
Sure.
half an hour to an hour or something, where like you don't get any recovery, but something minor. But yeah,
Yeah.
so like this time of downtime. What would normally be a long rest in other worlds is a short rest here. And so you feel just this heat, and like despite your resistances to heat and flames, you can still just feel your body dehydrating and being parched from this extreme heat. And the water skins you've brought with you soon become dry, if going through your water as you rest and sipping it as you need to. And for these 8 hours, it is calm, quiet, uneventful. At one point, you'd be kind of startled into just awareness as you hear the stomping of what would be perhaps 50 or 100 boots up above, kind of along the path that you guys had once been on. A passing legion, perhaps carrying or in tow a bunch of slaves, perhaps a many-legged creature. You're not unsure. But thanks to your hiding spot, you remain undetected during this time. And Tusk would return to be awake after this respite. And so the four of you were able to gather your things. However, you feel the power of that demon kind of fade from your bodies if you chose to partake, as it's a very, very relatively short high, at least. The power itself is temporary. What do you guys do now?
So one of the tricks that Kror learned early on in his life is that power of ice magic in a world like Crifoth is the power of life. And he is able to use Ray of Frost, which is like the first thing he learned in the heat, to just like cast it on a rock again and again and like make a puddle enough to like lick some moisture from a stone, enough to like slake your thirst even a little bit.
Yeah, and as you're able to cool the rocks around you, and as you sit upon it, you feel the refreshing coldness of it, and as it saps away your building heat of yourself and your surroundings. Refreshing, but very temporary, nonetheless.
But the pyramid lies beyond.
Yes, we've already wasted enough time as it is. Wait. Did you say pyramid?
Yes.
Sorry, just double checking, Connor. That wasn't there before.
And in all the time of your lifespan, is your time in the Blood Knights, this caldera of Hell's Heart itself has been fairly empty. I mean, it's been a lot of activity going on in general, but recently there's been a lot of activity, and also now there's a pyramid that Krur is recounting.
Huge pyramid. The center of the caldera.
I don't like it when there's stuff that is built, especially by demons. We should be extremely cautious. If not,
The approach looks open and totally lacking in cover, which I suppose if I was going to build a huge pyramid is how I would lay the land around it, but nonetheless it's going to be difficult to approach without being seen.
well, then we better hope we see them first. And she would kind of laugh at her own little joke. Because she...
Tusk, are you well?
Never been better. Did my horns get bigger at least?
Yes. Looks, yep. Very good.
All right. Well, there's no time like the present. This is what we're here for, isn't it? Let's find out what lies beyond.
Yep. And with that, Kuro would stand and like squeeze his way through that gap again into the canyon.
And the shrouding of these clouds of smog and smoke block out any kind of sky, whether it be the stars or the sun itself. It's hard to tell what time of day it is. The light itself seems to radiate from the earth of the magma instead of, the solar light above, just with how thick the air is. These strange shadows kind of dance from the flickering of the magma. As you emerge into the canyon you once were in, surrounded by these walls of volcanic rock and stone. It is quiet. There is not a peep beyond the cracking and general just sounds and ambiance of the lava flowing and the rocks cracking and breaking under its heat and erosion. You progress along these winding paths, and you're able to come across kind of a cliff overlooking the scene that Kror saw earlier from his high vantage point. You get to see this large expanse of open magma rivers and stony islands. And at the center of it all, amongst all the rocky outcroppings, is this obsidian black pyramid towering in the sky. Hundreds of feet tall, hundreds of feet in width and such. And you're able to see rank and file legionaries dotted with various fiendish creatures of various ranks patrolling along its outskirts. You see slaves, tiefling slaves, shackled at the necks and the wrists, all chained together in a long line of two head of shoulder width. They're all just being pulled along on this massive just line of them and being funneled into what seems to be an opening at the base of this pyramid. Other than that, it seems eerily quiet and eerily inactive beyond the pyramid itself, as the focus definitely lies at this center, at this epicenter of the caldera.
Looks like dinner is served.
If we need to get close without being detected, there are ways that we can do that. Are we trying to get into the pyramid?
think that we wanted to find out what was going on and try to stop it, from what I remember.
Yeah, the details of your mission were hazy at best. Uninformed. All you knew is that there's some increased activity in this area. That can't be something good. And so, to confirm those reports, is this massive obelisk of this stone monolithic pyramid at its center, built seemingly recently. It's definitely not a sign of something good.
I would not be happy with myself if this was the only information that we brought back. I say, we must know at least what is happening.
Well, I could make it seem as though we are legionaries, perhaps with slaves in tow, if that helps us get closer, but it is powerful and draining magic.
I don't know, it looks to be... And she said, I can hear the chains and the shackles, but tell me, are they humans? Being brought in? Being moved?
I can't be certain from this far away.
Well, then we must get closer, and I think your idea is probably the best we've got.
All right. Let's make a circle. No one move. And he would begin to chant. Move his arms. He would again, like with his staff, there's this particular little blade along the side of it. He would run his thumb over it. And blood would kind of more blood than seems would come from this cut would run along the rivulets of the staff. And then he would finally hit it into the ground, casting seeming, which lets us basically make us look however I want us to look. And I think what I'll do is I'll make us look like legionaries, maybe one slave in tow, or maybe just legionaries. No, a slave. I'll be the slave. And you three will look like Hell Knights or legionaries, as I guess being a powerful member of the Blood Knights. I would know what legionary rankings and stuff look like, and insignia and stuff like that. Is that fair to say?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The legionaries themselves are decked out in a very certain hell-forged armor of blood obsidian, with the various pauldrons and accessories of this armor denoting rank, as well as you'd know that a banner is worn by certain legionaries to denote which kind of branch they're a part of. And this banner would hold a certain symbol kind of on a certain color. Not only do the symbol and the color themselves would be important. And you'd know probably from how many times you've dealt with the inner workings and just all these missions you've done in the past of what symbols and colors mean what. And so you can tell me, Lloyd, what does this symbol, on what color does this banner take?
So I think that Crow would try and pick the particular unit or branch of the Legion which is least likely to get hassled in the way in. So if there's he's thinking something like a military police, if you can imagine something that whose job it is to find people who aren't particularly loyal in the Legion.
And those legionaries specifically, are called rat catchers, as their job itself is to hunt down what are called rats, escaped slaves or defected legionaries or in the like, and hunt them down and bring them back.
Yeah. So that would be the look he would go for. He would make Tusk look like the centurion of this little unit, since he's bigger anyway. And the symbol is going to be, that's a tough one. I think it's going to be like a mustard yellow, like a disgusting sort of mustard yellow color, with this simple, like rat skull as a symbol.
Awesome, yeah. And so you shape change. Is this illusion or actual like changing how they look?
It is illusion. So if somebody was to like touch one of us, then it would become like the illusion would stay, but it would like potentially go through a pauldron or something. You know what I mean?
Awesome. Yeah. So you cast this kind of masking on all of your companions, including yourself, to essentially disguise them in this sense. And now you kind of look around and you see these intimidating legionaries and centurions in their wicked armor. And along with the banner protruding from the shoulder of Tusk, the centurion, the kind of quote unquote leader, at least, of this little squad, with this mustard yellow flag and its little rat skull symbol.
Yeah, I myself will like be like a smaller. I mean, Kror is smaller anyway than a lot of tieflings, but like kind of like very very thin and like chains around his neck and his extremities. And I'm going to make it look like he's like badly wounded and like bruised and
Awesome.
When Malethus sees the illusion once it's in place and realizes who it is you've made us look like, you guys can basically hear the leather on his bow, like the wrapped around the handguard, creaking as he grips it so tight. The idea of portraying one of the slave chasers is absolutely abhorrent to him, but given the circumstances, he's trying to keep himself calm about it.
Yeah, and I think that Red would get very nervous. Probably would want to keep her head down because she's not sure how her eyes would look because she's so used to having this guard on so that if she doesn't maybe directly look at someone, it's not a big deal. But with this, if she looks off or if her eyes don't, make eye contact, it could give the whole thing away. So she would probably just want to stick in the back, head down, eyes to the ground. I would think that there would probably be rankings within rat catchers. And I think she would probably make sure with Kror that she is of the lowest in the rat catchers, so that not making eye contact is a more respected thing.
Okay.
Or the proper thing to do.
So I think like maybe we had this discussion before the spell was cast. And thinking about it now, maybe it makes sense for Kror to also be like a knight, so he can speak in that. Like Kror is good at that, and he would be confident. Well, maybe Red isn't, and he would know that. So maybe Red is the slave instead. So
yeah, I think that might be better. Yeah.
She doesn't have to worry then about like engaging in conversation.
Yeah, and Red has a very deep and intimate understanding of rat catchers themselves. And so she'd be able to relay all of the nittier, finer details, I'd imagine, to give you proper information, Kror. And so you look around and you see a convincing troop under your illusion spell.
I'll say before we start moving that this illusion looks good and it will sound good. We will sound like Hell Knights, but it also is important that we move like them and act like them. So shoulders need to be back, backs need to be straight, eyes need to be filled with disdain and hate. Marching needs to be in sync. And he would like go through this list of like things that he has observed from these enemies of his for his whole life, and making sure that rather than now looking like them, but walking like cowboys or whatever, that we're walking like the Legion.
Also, I think, Connor, so I think you guys would know this, that Red used to be a rat catcher when she was really like a lot younger, before she was blinded. So I think that there would probably be like a formal greeting or something just to kind of sell it a lot more that she would kind of relay to them as well, in addition to all the great points that Cror was making.
And Megan, do you have an idea of what this greeting would be?
um, I think probably something like some sort of like hand gesture, whether it's like a fist over the heart or like I don't know.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that then. We're just some gesture, a placeholder gesture for now. And you can, as you set up this disguise, you can see that there are what seem to be kind of stone pathways that have been put into place, spider webbing out from the center of this caldera, forming makeshift pathways from all directions towards this epicenter. And there's one nearby from your vantage, if you were to descend this cliff and go along it. Otherwise, it's fairly empty. You don't see patrols going along these pathways or these spider webs, and so it looks to be a very uneventful trip itself to the center of this pyramid. How long does your illusion spell last, Lloyd?
That's ridiculous. 8 hours.
All right, cool. And so, what do you guys do from here?
Crow would look for paths that people are taking. Maybe before we head into the actual caldera, watch for a few moments and see if there's particular paths that troops are taking, or you know what I mean, to try and fit in rather than just we're gonna walk straight to the pyramid.
Yeah, and you'd see this battalion kind of ascend over one of the hills and kind of descend down, kind of far off, maybe a mile or so along this perimeter of this caldera, and they haven't. It's maybe a dozen soldiers themselves, but they have may have a handful of slaves in tow. They kind of yank on their chains and cause them to hustle or continue to move as they wince and as their feet sear against the hot rocks beneath their feet, their bare feet. And from this closer vantage, you can see definitely these red horns sprouted from their heads, and their white pale skin that looks almost bleached and transparent, kind of translucent in this eerie light. But you can definitely see one of these entrances that troops would come from. And they would continue along a certain path, just taking a direct route to the pyramid itself, not following any kind of weird zigzaggy pattern through the spider webbing of rocks.
I think on occasion, Crow would make the effort to say something quietly and then laugh loudly, as if there's some sort of coarse joke being said, and maybe occasionally slap Red in the back of the head or something like that, just to keep the charade up.
Yeah, Red would make sure to just keep her eyes or keep her head down, not glancing up or anything. And maybe a few fake stumbles on the ground.
And so you just progress towards the pyramid in this deceivingly fashion. Sweet. And so you follow the path. There's the any arrivals of troops are very sparse and few between, so you don't have to merge with any others. And it's uneventful as you see a particularly large demon covered in from head to toe in these thick spines that protrude through this blood obsidian armor that it wears. Its face covered in a thick helmet that obscures its face. Only these red piercing eyes would peer through. And it kind of steps up to approach the four of you as you kind of close the distance. It does not do it in any kind of menacingly way or any obviously hostile way. Just kind of approaching to greet you. And it would kind of, as you approach, or if you do approach, within about 10 feet, it would kind of stand tall, hands at its back. You can see just this wavering light, the way that the light kind of folds through around it, like the heat waves you see around hot fire. It would bellow out in an otherworldly kind of supernatural voice. Where'd you get that one from?
Ushnak Golrak, Crow would say, which is like a greeting in Fiendish. Found him in the caldera, not too far beyond, trying to escape. Returning him for processing, Dreadlord.
He just kind of gives you a and kind of with a nod and kind of steps to the side, letting you pass.
And Crow would look for a moment towards Mal, who he knows has more hate in his heart for these creatures than any of them, just to make sure that he's still moving along and not staring hatefully.
To be honest, he probably was when you first started to speak with him. But again, he's holding it together well enough that he's just kind of turned his eyes down toward the floor now, figuring that that's better than looking openly hostile. And he's just gritting his teeth. You can almost hear him grinding his teeth.
And as the four of you kind of pass, I would like all four of you please to make deception rolls with advantage because of the well-crafted illusion.
$19?
And so, Megan, what does it look like for Red to momentarily slip out of character in the gaze of this Dreadlord?
I feel like maybe she would recognize his voice. And that would kind of cause her to look up. And I think that you could tell that she is not looking at him, she is looking past him. It looks off, I would think. Her eyes, just something about them looks off is when she meets his face.
And immediately upon seeing your face, as you kind of look up, this fiend would step forward, kind of grasp you by the chin with this obsidian gauntlet, kind of covered in wicked spikes and whatever. Kind of pulls your face up, kind of straining, kind of looking at your face and your eyes and how they oddly act. Kind of unlike what normal eyes would act like. What's wrong with her? So it's her, right? The disguise?
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened to her?
This one has a defiant face, Lord. I'm not sure. We have given her severe beatings already. I'm sure she'll be seen to when processed.
Kind of just, again, another growl. And all this time kind of speaking in the fiendish language. And kind of just would kind of throw you, kind of knocking you off balance a bit. Red, as he kind of just like gives you kind of a toss with your hand as he kind of like smacks your head against something. Kind of just like lets you pass again, kind of with this gruffness, and continues to kind of like turn and begin to greet another kind of approach of another soldier band, another soldier troop that's kind of approaching, but not, kind of 100 feet off or so. And you can see from up close now, there's just this ring, this island, essentially on the magma. And this pyramid is even more massive now that you've gotten close to it. You can see it almost blot out the sky itself with how tall it is. Its walls, its base kind of stretches off to either direction, kind of spanning a considerable distance before ending. And you can see the main kind of entryway that this side of the pyramid is having its kind of soldiers and slaves fed through. But up close, you can see that there's perhaps other entrances as well that would feed other kind of entryways. And this place seems heavily guarded. There are just every 10 feet or so a tiefling that is clad in this blood obsidian garments and armor and armory. What do you call them? Weapons. Kind of standing at attention, almost unmoving, unswaying. They don't even scratch or kind of sway from side to side or anything like that. Just still as a statue as they hold their pole arms up at their side. They don't even turn their heads to look at you, as the way to this entryway is clear.
Right, Red, eyes down. He would say, and then like push roughly into your back and begin walking in.
Yeah, you could probably see Red let out just a sigh of relief for not totally botching this plan. And yeah, she would immediately just turn her head down.
And from its interior, you can hear sounds of steel clanging on stone. Clang, clang. You hear the screams of agony of hundreds of individuals kind of echoing from within this thing's depths. You feel this wave of this unnerving, perverted power kind of wash over you as you step within this threshold. It's something that queases you and uneases you, yet also seems to put you at kind of at ease a bit with just the type of power itself, this eldritch, fiendish power. Within this pyramid are these halls adorned with these pillars, everything of this dark obsidian that's patterned with these rivulets of red that seem like a combination of veins and cracked molten earth. You pass along many slaves that are sweating and have boils and burns all along their skins and sides as they build various parts of this complex, fastening from these thick cords these hunks of stone and push them in place, while these slave drivers whip and yell at them and shout. Occasionally some would fall and they'd get beaten to the point of death, or even death itself would take them. And you see some dead slaves be carted off and just tossed into a pit further off in another part of the complex. It seems to be that there is the general layout for this seems to be kind of a central spire of stairs that would ascend and descend both, whether to the top of this pyramid, you're unsure, and to what depths it would have, you are you also do not know. And these chambers kind of extend outwards from the central point in various shapes, each for an unknown purpose. Some of these legionaries resting, some patrolling, some higher powered demons doing who knows what, strange magics, strange rituals, carving symbols and sigils in the ground and on the walls. Some are just ripping apart these dead slaves and feasting upon them. Others just toying with them itself. It's a terrible sight and terrible place. What do you guys do from here?
Kurora is trying to figure out what's going on and who the boss is and why this place exists and what it's for. Are there other that we know of, like other like castles or like bases for the Legion? Obviously there are others, right? But like close to here?
Yeah, at the base of this mountain is essentially what remains of the old world's old capital, which built atop it are these various strongholds and citadels and such, ruled by the archfiends themselves. And so this kind of general area, this region you're in, is completely swarmed with the evil powers that be.
I'm trying to like reconcile the fact that we don't know where we're going in this base, but we should. Like, are there other? Is this the main base for the Legion that we're in? This whole area, or are there like other bases further afield where we might have been in the middle somewhere, picked up the slave, and decided this was closer than the other place, so that I could potentially pretend to not be from here?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like, so yeah, this volcano you're on, right? This whole caldera is just like this giant mountain, and then like at its base, and the whole kind of region around it is kind of called what's called Hell's Heart by the people in the Blood Knights, and everything is just the base, the country essentially of the demons. So yeah,
Okay.
you can be from various regions of this place.
Sure.
Yeah.
So then I guess probably foolishly I would look for somebody who looks like they're in charge, or something more likely.
And so you'd see a towering demon, probably twice your height and probably twice your width as well. These arms and legs thicker than most things should be, as it's these big horns are kind of curled over its head, as it's scribbling and scratching into the stone itself with these long black claws, drawing sigils in a smaller chamber. By the size and kind of make of this creature, it is a higher status demon than you guys are.
I would approach and kneel and say, Ushnak Gorak, we beg forgiveness, Dreadlord. We found this slave on the run. We need to process them, and we are new to this bastion.
You dare interrupt me? The annoyance of your interruption is an insult to me and my workings. Go, I have no time for you, rabble.
Kind of just like shooing off.
I'll turn around and walk quickly away.
So during this time, Red is silent because if she is even seen talking or anything like that, it could raise suspicion. But she is listening, and she is trying to sense the area around her and just try to get a read on if she can kind of glean anything, anything at all, just from listening and sensing and stuff like that.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll give you like either an investigation or a perception check. Your choice.
Okay, I'll do perception. That is, excuse me, a 26.
So by the various conversations of passerbys and walkers-bys, you could definitely tell that there is some kind of it's called a pit, and it takes place in the lower levels of this pyramid complex where it seems that slaves are being brought to, rather than essentially where slaves are being brought to. As you can see, many tieflings carting their slaves down down these staircases and beyond, and you don't see many slaves themselves in the higher levels of this complex itself.
Yeah, so I think that she would, at hearing this information, she would pretend to trip and kind of fall into Tusk. And as she's feigning like she's steadying herself, she would quickly whisper to him that we need to be in the pit. That's where the other slaves are. They might be, willing to give more information than some of these demons. And then I say, now hit me, right? Because it's such a bad thing to even touch, like your slave master. So
with the thaumaturgy, my eyes will glow red, and you rodent, you dare touch me, and I'll throw her on the ground, and I'll say, "Don't worry, you'll have your time in the pit soon enough."
Yeah, in this kind of outbreak, it draws no attention. It's very commonplace, this interaction, as some slaves can be a bit more resistant or a bit more rebellious than others that are more complacent. And so no one pays you any heed at this interaction.
So Kuro obviously didn't hear what's happening. He would just look nervously between everyone waiting.
I'd pull on her chains to get her going, so we get going and try to find our way down to the pits. The pit.
You're able to find a set of stairs that would descend further into this pyramid, and you can by the sounds of the wails and screams and cries crescendoing and getting louder and louder. It feels like you can definitely tell that it's getting closer and closer, echoing off of these black jet walls of this staircase. And you approach the landing, and you see a pair of lower rank legionaries, not the lowest rank, but pretty low, each holding a chain, holding this four-legged looking gnarly flesh looking creature, essentially a hellhound they each have, that are just kind of very discontent, kind of snapping and kind of reefing on the chains that each of them kind of hold. And as your footsteps kind of betray your presence, they would kind of whip around and see Tusk, you with your larger armor and this banner that raises from your shoulder. They'd each kind of salute you in a kind of a respectful and obedient way, kind of going to attention and waiting upon your announcement.
He would stand up and introduce whomever the guys that Krior would be, and whoever he's presuming, because I would think that he was higher ranking than me, but I would announce him, I guess.
And they kind of give their salute and kind of back off, kind of yanking on their hellhounds at their sides. But they seem to be their attention is drawn to the four of you as their piercing yellow eyes kind of look you over, and this nasty, flesh warped nose. You can just see it kind of pulsate in and out as this air is just being rushed through its kind of rotting face, as it's kind of essentially sniffing the air around you. And they start just kind of wailing and roaring in the way that hellhounds do, a nastier, more kind of scary and terrifying version of a regular wolf. And they begin kind of like reefing on their chains and kind of snapping at the four of you, kind of in their weird bestial way. And then the two tieflings kind of look down and see the odd reaction of their hounds and kind of look up to you quizzically.
Sorry, who did you say you were?
Kind of more accusatorily.
Crow would like roll his eyes at this like inconvenience, and he would like, and he would look to Tusk to announce him again.
What would be like the rank that he was?
Centurion?
Sure, yeah.
This is Grand Centurion Decibel. We are here to deliver another escapee rodent. We beg your audience so that we can get affairs under order.
And these two tieflings are kind of like, with all their strength, trying to hold back these hellhounds, whose strength probably, could easily topple them if they, were to let go for a second. And they're very unsure as what to do, as this normally doesn't happen. These hellhounds are, fairly obedient, yet extremely merciless. And they kind of reef on them a bit more. It's like, I'm sorry for this delay. And they try to like placate these hounds, but they seem to be a bit relentless at this, and they're unable to let you pass, as they're just kind of like yipping and jumping on their hindquarters and trying to slash at you and kind of maw at you with these wicked teeth.
I don't have time for this, soldier.
I'm trying, as they kind of like they're pulling on the chains and then they're not getting any ground.
I'd like to use my thaumaturgy to make my face look even worse than theirs, and to like to make it look like I'm larger and more booming, and be more snarling, and to even tower over these dogs and be more dominant than they are.
Okay, you have it roll in an intimidation check, please.
21.
Yeah, and so these creatures are unfazed by your increased snarling and threatenedness, despite your thaumaturgy and your general appearance already given to you by Kror. It seems that they know something that you don't, or that the other legionaries don't. They just continue to kind of try to savage you, but are held back.
Okay, I'm going to cast a spell. I'm going to use my twin spell to cast blindness and deafness on the hellhounds. They need to make a con saving throw.
One of them got a 17, the other 13.
Okay. And if it's 17 is my DC, does that mean it makes it or not?
If they would beat it, yeah.
Okay.
They beat it.
So one of them will go blind. The other one won't.
And so the one that goes blind immediately kind of like rears back and starts like clawing at its own face to kind of get rid of the obscurement over its eyes that it believes it has, kind of like causing these big welts of black demon blood to pour from its face. The other just continues kind of like on its hindquarters and trying to slash at you and such.
I'll like look at the men holding the hellhounds, and I will say, I have maimed one of your animals. Do not make me maim the other. Get out of my way.
I'm trying. They're just so fucking stubborn.
He says as he's kind of like reefing on his that's still being very persistent. And you can hear these louder thud, thud, thud steps kind of coming from around the corner.
What is that ruckus?
This louder, more scary voice would shout out. As a larger figure, still a tiefling, but clad in this, larger armor and essentially looks like a centurion himself, with this wicked blade on his back, this like great sword made of blood obsidian itself.
What is the meaning of this?
Kind of seeing the sight of these dogs just going wild and crazy.
So he's his peer, his equal.
Yeah.
Thank the dark that you have come. We have been waiting here to pass for far too long. We have things to process, things to do, and these men. It has been a trying day, and I do not need to wait here any longer.
And he kind of looks you up and down and sees, your proper ranking. He kind of looks to these two lower rank legionaries and their oddly acting dogs, and he kind of just reaches out this gauntleted hand, and these wisps of black energy kind of peel from those four figures, the two hounds and the two tieflings, as their bodies begin to wither and decay and just slump to the ground, becoming piles of nothing more than ash. The hellhounds themselves just essentially fading to nothingness as this centurion just reaches in and just pulls out all of their essence and just
To the cairn they go. Disobedience will not be tolerated here. I'm sorry for your inconvenience, Centurion.
kind of giving you a salute and kind of like gesturing beyond to where the entrance to the pit is.
I'll return it and say, I appreciate your exemplary service.
And he kind of just turns his back and kind of walks where he came from. Very annoyed by this whole affair and the fact that he had to personally relieve two of the soldiers under this banner. And so the entrance to the pit itself is just this grand maw, very obvious, kind of adorned with these sickening bones and rib cages and such that seem to be growing themselves from the obsidian around this kind of entryway. And it's just this massive pit, kind of with this weird kind of net, I guess, made of a weird material of a combination of like sinew and flesh and stone itself. Kind of that would cage in at the base. Just looks like this pile of bodies in the center of this kind of grander, kind of almost Colosseum-like shape. And the center is just like this, essentially this pit.
Yeah, and so can Red hear anyone else like in the pit? There's a bunch of slaves or
Yeah, it sounds like there's just like dozens upon dozens of slaves just kind of like moaning and wailing and creaking or whatever the word is when you're in pain and you're kind of like groveling, just being very miserable. And as you kind of listen, you can see across from you, across this kind of, inverted dome shape, another one of the, these legionaries kind of grip a slave, by the shirt of this kind of raggy kind of tunic they have, and just kind of lift them up and toss them into this little opening at the center, and they kind of just fall into this pit, along with a kind of a sickening crunch and these screams of pain as this slave lands atop other slaves and is all nasty.
And she would kind of shake her head, very ever so slightly, just a bit confused. They do treat the demons and the slavers are known for their cruelty, but always cruelty with a purpose. And so she would just be very, very perplexed by this, excess, just like throwing these people into this pit.
Yeah, Kuro would be kind of confused by the purpose of this as well. Like, it doesn't seem like them to just like waste free labor. They need slaves. Why are they throwing them away? Are there any like demons who are like watching this situation and are like overseeing it? And what are they doing? Are they like chanting or anything like that?
Similar to outside of the complex, there's like 3 of these legionaries, kind of lower rank, that are just kind of standing at attention, just standing guard at the perimeter atop of this pit, just standing guard with their pole arms and doing nothing but blinking, essentially. And as you kind of just survey the scene, you'd hear a loud kind of clanging sound from beneath. Sounds of like a creaking door kind of slam open, and a bunch of like whimpering, and kind of see a bit of a shuffle going on in these slaves as you hear the kind of clanging of metal armor on this material, these boot steps, and they kind of reach out, and you see kind of in the shadowy lighting of this place, you'd see a centurion come down and grasp out at one of the chains of these slaves and kind of yank them off along a passageway below, kind of like the level below you, that has a direct entryway to this cage that they're all in, and yank him off to some place unknown. And kind of just slam the door behind him and hear the chunk chunk kind of sound of a heavy lock being put over the door from the other side.
Are there eyes on us?
There would be. You're definitely kind of being watched by these 3 guards that are kind of stationed, kind of in a triangular formation, along the edge of this kind of pit. Whether they're directly watching you, or they're just aware of you, it's hard to tell because of their helmets covering most of their face. But you don't imagine that if you were to do something, it would be unnoticed.
As of right now, we need to throw her in the pit. See what happens, or we have to sacrifice her, basically.
Yeah.
That's our whole plan.
I think that Red would kind of understand this, kind of get the kind of gist of what needs to happen. And you could probably see her kind of tilt her head in kind of like a nodding nodding motion.
Right, I'm gonna throw it in the pit.
And Red, you're tossed into this little kind of hole. And you kind of fall with a thud. A thud that, would normally injure a person would. You kind of like roll a certain way, and neither you nor the person you land on top of get injured. And you see yourself, I guess, you feel yourself in this crowded, small space, kind of a circle maybe 20 feet in radius. Oh, just this place is just cramped with dozens upon dozens of these slaves. You can feel the whipping of their tails and their horns on their head. That, if not all of them, the majority of them are definitely tieflings.
Yeah, and I think at this first real like solid giveaway to her that these are not humans, but in fact tieflings, she would automatically get very, very scared because, with humans it makes sense, they're being used for their souls, but tieflings don't have that, so or they don't use them. Demons don't use them for that, so. I think that she would really wish that someone else was here with her because she doesn't like talking, or she's not really great at talking with other people. But she's gonna try, just attempt it a couple of people just to see if she can get, kind of nudge them and say, "Hey, what's going on? Do you know what's happening?" But kind of trying to feign fear. Or as much as she can. She probably is actually pretty afraid, so it'd be pretty easy to fake.
Yeah. Honestly, I would not even any roll for this. You get the attention of one of these slaves. It's a kind of, this one seems a bit more coherent than the other ones, and she would begin to open her mouth, and we're going to take a bio break for a bit. Probably about 10 minutes. Go have your smokes, have your drinks, have your bathroom breaks or whatever. We'll come back at the hour.
Cool, sounds good.
So Lloyd, how's Crifoth?
It's good. Can't believe I'm still alive. It's good. I'm enjoying it. I really love the image of the demon who's just like in work, like doing his job, like writing sigils on the wall. And there's demons all over the place. You never see demons anywhere, you know. And they're just like everywhere, just like doing jobs, which I quite like.
I'm just putting in my 8 hours and then going home, you know? They're all just like, just doing my 9 to 5, no biggie.
Yeah, exactly.
So if we're all good to go, we can hop back into things. We have 3 viewers currently. Ooh. Good job, viewers, being all viewy and such. If we're good to go, we can just hop back in. Cool. And so we're going to kind of pan away from what is going on with Red. The 3 of you, disguised as legionaries and centurions, you've just tossed one of your companions, a fellow blood knight disguised as a slave, into the pit, where all these slaves dwell in agony and despair. What did the 3 of you do now?
Would we have any idea what they do inside inside of their, like, they go to their barracks or report into an even higher up?
Yeah, and as you follow what the other tiefling did as he dumped in a slave, you kind of see him approach a certain chamber that's kind of overseeing kind of a story above this grand pit, that kind of like this kind of this column of emptiness that kind of stretches a few stories in height at its base being the pit. And you can see many chambers kind of on its surface or on its edge, going up and down this kind of column of emptiness. And you see one of those tieflings kind of report in, it seems, with a higher ranking individual. Their discussion is muted by the distance and the materials blocking the path. We can kind of see it in the openings, various cracks and windows that this place has.
Should we report, Centurion?
Perhaps we should. There's no one around us that isn't us, right? We're just like the 3 of us standing together.
There's the 3 guards.
Mhm.
They're kind of standing over this kind of like balcony, kind of overseeing this pit at the center, but they seem to be a little bit out of earshot now. If you were to whisper, you can kind of talk with each other.
Then I would whisper and I would say, I do not feel comfortable leaving Red here on her own.
Neither do I, but are we going to draw attention to ourselves?
It's a good point.
Is there anything looking like it goes downward? Like a stairwell that goes downward? Only just the pit?
There's yeah, there would be a chamber or another stairwell going 1 level down below, 1 more story. But other than that, no.
Perhaps a more discreet way of getting back to her.
I kind of like point my horns in the direction of the chamber that heads downward.
Yeah, Cora would nod and look to Mal for confirmation that we're going to do that.
He'll nod as well and start moving in that direction.
And so you would descend these obsidian staircase. And you kind of round the corner. You'd see the thick bars that lead into this pit, this dwelling of slaves. It's, latched in place by these multiple thick locks and bars. And standing guard is another legionary. His rank is much higher than even Centurion. And he would just kind of glare you up and down as you approach. You can see by his horns and his skin that he is still a tiefling, but one perhaps that has committed a long time of service or done great things to be worthy of this rank. This rank of his is not only held by tieflings, but also of lesser demons. Not unlike the one you met outside the pyramid. He just kind of stares at the three of you unwaveringly, kind of like his arms crossed, kind of leaning against the wall that's next to this giant latched door. And kind of like nods. He kind of like looks down, kind of fiddles with some trinket in his hands, and pays you almost no heed.
I would just walk confidently towards the door, as if that's normal, and as if he's going to open it for me.
Not so fast. As you kind of I mentioned, you almost reach for it, maybe.
Yep.
Or as you kind of approach it too close, kind of puts his hand on your chest, kind of pushes you back a bit. And if I understand correctly, he gets an intelligence save or something based on your illusion.
Yes, he can make an investigation check.
Yeah, and he kind of would as this this weird thing happens as he touches your chest, and he definitely feels through it. He get an 18 on his investigation.
Yep.
And so what would that be like, Lloyd, as he kind of pushes you back in this way?
So I mentioned that he unbalances because he expects to meet resistance before he does. There's maybe 3 or 4 inches behind the illusion where he actually manages to connect. So he would and then I would take a step back and pretend like nothing had happened, and I would say, "Hey, what are you doing? Open the door."
He kind of what the? And immediately kind of just snaps his fingers. And Lloyd, I want you to make a wisdom saving throw, please.
Uh-oh. 4.
You are held in place, paralyzed by the hold person spell.
I'm dead.
And he kind of approaches you and just kind of pokes his finger and just fades through this illusion you have. And the illusion essentially breaks for him, and he sees your true form underneath. And he just kind of snarls, and this kind of grin almost creeps across his face as he kind of just reaches down to his side and pulls out this wicked blade, longsword essentially. And then he kind of looks to the two of you, Malithus and Tusk, and he says, "Not so fast." And I'd like initiative rolls, please, from the 3 of you.
12.
And so, Malithus, you get to act first, as this guard has kind of seen through the illusion. What do you do?
Malithus pulls out his bow, and in an effort to make this less horrible than it necessarily has to be. He's going to attempt to use one of his arcane shots. Just trying to decide which one. Yeah, okay. So he's going to fire an arrow at him using Shadow Arrow. 24 to hit.
Yeah, that's a hit.
Okay. Then it will take 15 damage, and it needs to make a wisdom save or be unable to see anything further than 5 feet away until the start of its next turn.
It got a 21 on that wisdom save.
Start of mine. Okay. So it just takes the extra damage then. And I'm still going to make my other shot. That one's going to completely miss, though. I only rolled a natural 3.
And so you kind of pull out this arrow, and immediately he kind of just notices the arrow kind of sink into his, just into this pauldron area of his. The other one kind of clatters against the stone wall behind him. And he kind of reaches out with his other hand, and you can see the kind of like the purplish energy kind of wreathing along his fingers. And he kind of points to the both of you, one after the other. Not so fast. And both of you need to make a wisdom save, please.
Nope.
14.
Yeah, so the DC was 16. You both are also paralyzed by this hold person spell as he just twin casted on both of you. And he immediately just kind of saunters casually, kind of lifting, kind of dragging you by the cuffs of your appropriate collars. And he kind of makes a whistle sound on his mouth. I can't actually make it. So he just whistles up, and immediately these troops of lower rank legionaries immediately the 3 guards kind of come hustling down to see him, and he kind of shows off the 3 blood knights that have tried to infiltrate their ranks. Well, you know what to do, boys. Take all their stuff and toss them in the pit. And we kind of fade to black on that scene. And we go back to red. And you're conversing with this kind of beleaguered slave who's more coherent than the others and is open to conversation with you. What did you ask?
Do you know why we're here? What's going on?
I don't know. I know as much as you. I don't know. They were. Some of us get yanked out and don't see from them again. Sometimes we're building something, or I don't know. She kind of looks around, but some of us still left here. We're all here still. They wanted us to build. Why are we being kept here?
Redbird kind of shook her head. And then more eagerly, she would kind of say, did you see anything on your way here? Anything odd or unusual? Any maybe sigils or anything like that?
I was knocked out. They got me. Woke up here in this bed of bodies. I don't even know how to get out. I don't know how I got in. They haven't picked me yet. At least they still feed us.
What did they feed you?
And you can see the fact that some tieflings, or she kind of would glance around and kind of point out some of us are still red from our feedings.
And the people that they choose, is there any pattern? Do they choose a certain type of person?
I don't know. It seems like they just grab the first one that's within their grasp or their reach. I don't think so. I don't think there's a pattern.
Red would kind of nod, maybe like a little bit frustrated with her lack of answer. Not really getting any further than she was. And I think at this point she'd probably hear the commotion from outside the cell.
Yeah, you hear the commotion and then the silence, and then you see these legionaries dump 3 more bodies into this pit. Bodies you can sense as being the kind of unclothed bodies of, not unclothed, unequipped, I guess, bodies of Tusk and Malithus and Cror, as they're just basically wearing rags at this point, and they're tossed in this pit with you. And that's when the 3 of you come to after being clubbed in the back of the head from something. You wake up in this pile of bodies in this pit alongside Red. You can see her.
I think immediately Red would kind of rush up to the group of them and just say, "What happened? Did you guys get caught?"
That's exactly what happened.
I had a dream. I was drinking demon's blood.
Yeah, Red would just kind of shake her head and just goes, "Damn it. I haven't really learned anything from being down here. They're feeding the slaves down in the pit, and they pull some of them out. As you know, we heard. I'm not sure why."
Is there a way out?
Seems to be the only way out is through the locked door. She kind of nod her head towards the door that the tieflings are taking out the prisoners.
I might have a key.
That may be useful, but I mean, now that we're here, we're so close. I can feel it. I can feel that we're close to know what's going on.
Mazag says that we should run, that we should get out while we still can.
I can
What do you mean you have
summon
the key?
and I'll like spit in my hands and rub them together, and the blood will boil in his veins, and he'll call forth his bonded weapon and try and strike at the door.
And the weapon materializes in your hands. We'd see a kind of a dozing quartermaster kind of just leaned up back in this chair, kind of guarding all this stuff that's been captured and confiscated by various slaves or defected tieflings or even, trespassers. And he's sleeping with a helmet kind of covering his head, and the sword kind of leaning up against everything else vanishes and appears in your hands. And now you have this sword. It appears, and you bring down the sword, kind of crashing into the door, trying to hit like the hinge of it, essentially, or the lock of
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So you can just give me a straight damage roll here. Let's try and
So it
sunder
automatically hits then, or
Yeah,
is that what you mean? Oh, okay.
it's hard to miss a door with a sword.
17.
And yeah, that would slice through. The make of your weapon gives it that sharpness, and just the magical inherentness of it just cuts through the brittle material holding the lock in place, as the door is no longer locked from this side.
I'll just bust through it with my shoulder and keep heading forward.
And as you do so, you see that same, just that same guard that captured you, moments before, kind of already reeled back, and distanced himself from the door. His hand, one hand gleaming with magic, the other this sword. He kind of like growls at the sight of the four of you, kind of bursting through this door. He kind of growls, "I knew you'd be trouble." We can have initiative rolls here.
18.
And so, Malithus, you get to go first.
Well, with no weapon, there's not really a lot Malithus can do. So I guess he's just going to step out of the way in the hopes that our magical sword summoning friend can accomplish something.
All right. So just essentially just doing no action, I guess, or kind of do you dodge?
Yeah, I might as well dodge.
Yeah, cool. So you kind of just keep an eye out for the battle and, prepare yourself for anything coming your way. But Tusk, you have this gleaming sword in your hands that you're bonded with and you can summon. What do you do as you charge through this door?
Was that directed at me?
Yeah, Tusk.
Okay, I didn't hear the name, sorry. As soon as I bust through it, it's the same guy. I'm going to charge at him to try and strike him.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, go for it.
First one's going to be a miss. I'm going to go with my extra attack.
Okay.
Natural 20.
Yeah, so as a crit, you get to do your normal damage roll, but deal it all directly to blood, as well as you've got that critical hit effect, which DC 15?
Yes, sir.
He fails it, getting a
So
total
then
of
he
10.
automatically dies, I believe.
So you can go ahead and describe what that looks like as you just cut through this higher-ranking dreadlord of a tiefling kind of legionary with your sword.
With his mouth opening to say some other kind of quip towards me, I just bring my entire body around in a 360-degree slashing a whirlwind across his mouth through bisecting his head.
And he just slumps to the ground, just this blood just oozing from his, severed, bisected head. But you can hear the clatter of armor as more reinforcements begin to arrive on the scene from above, from atop the staircase.
The corpse's essence turns into a black cloud as it's absorbed by the blade.
Ooh. And Kror, it is your turn if Tusk has done his turn.
So the enemy before us is dead, right?
Yeah.
There's people coming from up above. I'm struggling. I'm going to cast invisibility on myself. And I'm going to move like into the room where the guy was and have a look around.
Yeah, and you see the 3 guards that were stationed at the top of this pit beginning to kind of like descend this staircase. More of like kind of like curiosity and kind of fear kind of to their eyes, rather than like, oh yes, we're gonna kill some people, vengeance. They're like, oh crap, we need to get down there, to see what's wrong.
Yeah.
And kind of go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go invisible and I'll like run into that room, see what I can see, and basically let them know.
Yeah, and so these kind of legionaries kind of head past you. I imagine you kind of like press yourself against the wall as they run past, as they descend. And there's 3 of them, same 3 guards that were stationed above. They're just clad in just these pole arms and this blood obsidian armor, and they would strike at you, Tusk. Only 2 of them are able to actually hit you in this cramped space. And so, what is your armor class of just dexterity?
Oh yeah, huh. 11, but I can use. Oh no, I don't have my arcane focus, so yeah, just 11.
Yeah, so one of them hits you with a 13 with
Alright.
this pole arm. Thankfully, these guys are pretty low level baddies. So it does 8 points of damage to you with this pole arm. And that brings us to Red. These 3 kind of legionaries have kind of like taken position of these pole arms over each other's shoulder. They bring up the kind of shields to make kind of almost like a wall, just blocking off the staircase itself, with these kind of spears poking out from it. What do you do?
So Red's gonna run up, trying to kind of dodge the spears, and try to hit the 3 of them. One she's gonna hit twice because she's gonna do 4 attacks.
Yeah, awesome.
Hitting and kicking and so on. All right. So the one I know definitely doesn't hit because it was a 10. One I critted on.
Okay.
And then I got a 28 and a 22.
Yeah, those all hit.
On
Yeah.
the next 2. Okay. So the one I critted on, that's 6
Blood damage.
6 damage.
Yeah. So this blood damage actually kills him because you do directly to his blood. You can go ahead and describe how that looks after you've done the other damage. Well.
Yeah, so then the other one is going to do 10 damage, and then the other one is going to do another 10 damage.
Awesome. Yeah. So you can just go ahead and describe actually like how you get into like the center of them or whatever and get all these flurry of attacks on them and end up killing one of them.
Yeah, so I can imagine she kind of she hits 2 of them, and then in the one, she just manages to get the heel of her palm. Excuse me. And then she sneezes, but not. She gets the heel of their palm right into their nose, essentially, just kind of breaking the nose bone and putting that into the brain, which kills the guy instantly.
Yeah, and these other 2 take severe poundings as you just kind of punch them in places and kind of hear you can kind of hear, the cracking of their armor underneath your empowered fists. And that brings us up to Malithus.
Mal's going to look around. Either of the 2 that have been killed already, did either of them have any sort of weapons on them? I'm assuming they did.
Yeah, one of them had a longsword, and one of the little simple soldiers had a kind of a pole arm.
I guess I'll go for the longsword and dig that out of the guy's hand or his belt if he hadn't drawn it or whatever. and if I can, swing on somebody else in the room, one of the other guards that's come storming down.
Yep. You can easily do that.
No, I'm not going to hit. It's like
All
an
right.
8.
Yeah. Tusk.
I don't do so well without a dex weapon.
Yeah. And it's Tusk's turn.
How many are these guards coming down?
There's 2 that are remaining. They've kind of formed this kind of shield wall with these polearms kind of poking through and kind of like flailing wildly at the 4 of you. Or I guess 3 of you because one of you is invisible.
I'm gonna try and have at the closest one.
Sure, yeah.
For 24.
That's totally a hit, yeah.
And reroll both of those. For worse. 8 slashing damage.
8 slashing is enough to kill this one after
All right.
Red's powerful blow.
I am going to. Can I still move and attack the other one then?
Oh, yeah, totally.
With 29.
Yep.
Reroll both of those. For 12 damage. No, 13
And
damage.
likewise, you kill the other one with 12 damage as well. Just these 2 great swings. And it seems that there's no further reinforcements headed this way, as you're pretty darn below, pretty far beneath everything that's going on right now. And so there's a moment you have to kind of regain your composure and kind of figure out what to do next.
Is there anything for them to get off of these guys?
They're wearing armor that looks to be too difficultly fastened on to, take it off and put it on in a reasonable amount of time. But they do have these kind of like halberds that they wield, and these shields that they carry as well. You could use.
At least until he finds another bow, Mal will pick up one of the shields. Better to have it than not, since he's got the extra hand.
Yeah, Crow doesn't need weapons. He's invisible, watching, or has watched as they dispatch these enemies, and now he is keen to find out what's going on here, so they can hopefully get out of here alive.
And likewise with Red, she doesn't use weapons, so she would just kind of stand up and just kind of look around. What now?
Do we have all we need?
We need to move.
I'm gonna start heading up the ramp.
Yeah, and you kind of hear some kind of whimpering, kind of like noises coming from the slaves that are beyond in the pit behind you, and I kind of see some of them kind of peek out of this big door and kind of look up and see that there's these 4 bodies of these legionaries at their feet, and some of them kind of begin to step out into the light and very cautiously and unsure whether they should leave or not. And so some few brave souls would kind of sheepishly kind of not follow you closely behind, but kind of just slowly begin to kind of spill out of this chamber. But as you kind of leap up these large stairs, you come back to that main landing you're on before. You kind of observe you can see the kind of the pit that they were thrown into. But none of these soldiers were stationed here. Or you can't see them because you just killed them back there. As well as as you kind of scan this area, you can see along these windows of various chambers looking above, and you can see some more of these soldiers kind of looking down and seeing what's going on, and then making gestures to send more troops perhaps and send reinforcements. And you'd see the quartermaster kind of like standing, alarmed and kind of like rewriting his helmet and grabbing, his poleaxe and kind of heading out of his stationed room as well, where all the belongings are kept. As you hear the kind of the clang and the clatter of more legionaries being kind of summoned to deal with this disturbance.
Were there more chambers along the way?
Getting to this landing itself,
Yeah.
there was there would have been another path that you could have. There's kind of another way out on this landing itself, not along the way up this ramp. No, that would kind of lead in another area on a different set of stairs going up. They haven't explored yet.
Just didn't know if we should be springing all the slaves as we go.
It might cause chaos. It'll certainly get them killed.
And it might even waste time that we don't have here. I think it's more important that we get out, get back to Freeport. So remember what you guys all see. Remember everything you can. And yeah, I think she would just kind of start charging up the stairs.
What do I think the most direct way from here to the exit is? Like, supposing that I could fly or teleport.
If you could fly, you might actually notice that this kind of column of emptiness, kind of this expanse that's over top of the pit, ascends a fair ways, maybe even to the top of the pyramid itself, stretching hundreds of feet in the air. If you could, maybe you could just fly straight up that way. You're unsure if how much obstacles there might be in the way, or if anyone would see you easily. But that's certainly an option. Teleportation wise, do you know what the conditions and ranges on that is?
So I have to be able to see where I'm going, but I think that going straight up is the best option. But I need to be able to see where I'm going.
Okay.
Potentially, but I think that flying straight out is the way to go. I'm invisible currently still.
Yeah.
And I guess you would hear the voice say, "I can get out. I know that I can."
And Red would nod, and then she would kind of mutter to herself. Maybe Cror would hear it, maybe not. And then she would kind of mutter, be like, "It only takes one." And she would kind of use thaumaturgy to kind of draw attention to herself as she's kind of running through everywhere, kind of calling out, making like war cries and sounds and just trying to make a whole ruckus.
I guess he wouldn't see it because he's invisible, but he would like nod slowly in like gratitude, and then he would like move invisibly to like having grabbed the stuff right that we had. I'm not even sure that we would have taken off my boots because that's what's magical. Just find the bottom of that tube that runs the way through, still invisible, and just begin to rise upwards.
And so yeah, you're able to rise, steadily but surely with this power of yours. In the meantime, Red, you've called a lot of attention to yourself. What does Tusk do in this kind of moment?
I'm gonna be right alongside her, using Booming Blade and thaumaturgy every chance I get to try to shed light from my eyes, and then Booming Blade is to make noise, try to draw attention to myself as well.
And how about Malithus?
How far away from us is the quartermaster, and the more importantly, the room that he was guarding?
It would be about a story up. and like the getting around to it would be easily done within like a few dozen feet or so.
Then I'm headed there just as rapidly as I can. I want my damn oath bow back.
And so we see Malthus just like sprint off, heading up some set of stairs. There are a pair of legionaries there to greet you, Malthus. On this kind of like they're rushing down the stairs to see what the commotion is. In the meantime, Red and Tusk, these legionaries in just these swarms, maybe a dozen or so, come spilling out of the various kind of entryways into this kind of larger landing area, each kind of wielding various weaponry, some having crossbows made of blood obsidian, some with these kind of pole arms that they have. And Kror, you continue to rise unhindered, heading towards that faint blot of light. It's barely even light at the top of this pyramid, you imagine, as you keep ascending and ascending. And
yeah, he's just like taking it all in, like trying to get a good view of everything as he's flying up, he is invisible, but he's still trying to remain unobtrusive, even in terms of like breathing and like movements, just in case. He's like watching up above and like to the side to make sure he's not going to like get too close to anyone or bump into anything, and is thinking of how he's going to remember this valiant sacrifice that they've made.
And so, Malthus, you can describe to me just how you dispatch this pair of legionaries as you progress your way up this staircase to get to your oath bow. There's no roll even needed for this.
Is the staircase open? Because we're in kind of like a large open chamber with just levels around it, right?
Yeah.
Then I think it's primarily going to be that just as he's sprinting up, he's just gonna ram his shoulder right into the one standing more toward the outside and try to knock him right off the steps down onto the floor below, and kind of half-heartedly swing his sword at the other one, but he's honestly not even really trying to hit him because he knows that he's probably outmatched sword to sword. So he's just looking to kind of make the guy flinch so that he can just keep on running right past him.
Yeah, and as you send one of these guys falling, he lands in that weird mesh-like net that kind of covers the majority of this pit. It kind of just rips a hole in it because of his sheer weight as he kind of stretches and snaps as he kind of tumbles and kind of just smashes against the various forms that are kind of groveling in the base of the pit, cleaving this hole in the meshwork. And he kind of the other one kind of flinches aside, bringing up his shield, but that gives you enough of a time to close the distance between this kind of room that's just has all this stuff confiscated from various personages amongst the time of this whole building's operation. And you can kind of see all your stuff kind of in a heap beyond bars, of course. They seem to be kind of locked in some fashion. And Tusk, you can go ahead and describe to me how you're able to just kind of battle back these hordes of legionaries kind of just spilling out and striking you guys. No need to roll, just what does it look like?
Well, being that he's a great weapon master and he gets bonus action attacks after he kills, he just gets the momentum from killing one, swinging into the other, even cutting through two with one slash with this, because his sword is just so large, and he's just consuming the essence of these things as he strikes them down with the 9 lives stealer.
And Red, what does it look like for her as she fights back these kind of just these legions of legionaries kind of spilling out?
I think that Red would kind of have an idea, and she would actually follow Malthus kind of up the stairs towards this room. And I'm assuming that there's probably quite a bit of confiscated, maybe weapons, armor, like just a bunch of stuff. And she would just take as much as she can if she gets up there, and she would just take sword after axe after, just try to get as much as she can, kind of go to the edge if this is an open area and throw it down towards the pit, where there was like the open cages and stuff, just to, maybe people can get out, fight for themselves, something like that.
I imagine you kind of toss this various weaponry down, and one of the swords kind of goes down blade first and skewers one of the slaves kind of in the ground below. And immediately another tiefling runs over and just rips the sword out of his dead kind of slave companion and begins to kind of charge out, making a kind of a war cry of some kind.
Yeah, like she's not too concerned about like hitting people because there's so many slaves down there. So even if there's 10 that come up, like that's good.
But this battle, as it stands, despite how much progress you've made, it is soon that you're overwhelmed, but just by the sheer numbers of soldiers and higher ranking demons. As the time passes, despite your best efforts, as these slaves kind of pour up from the pit itself and get cut down handily by more armed and armored legionaries and even higher up praetors. These larger demons, the ones that you saw scribbling and scribing away on the walls, making sigils, begin to appear, from higher above, launching these wicked fireballs made of black fire down, causing horrendous explosions. The thunder of it deafens you, and before you know it, the light would fade from your eyes as you are defeated in combat. As Cror emerges from a tiny little hole, barely wide enough for him to fit through, this long chimney he's ascended, he sees the expanse of this caldera around him as he's emerged from the pyramid. What little things he's gleaned from his ascension, he's kept in his memory. And Lloyd, for this epilogue here, as our session comes to an end, you are the sole survivor of this mission into the Black Pyramid in the caldera of Hell's Heart. You're back. Barely somehow you've scraped it together to get back to Freeport. It's not even a town, just this roaming civilization beneath the bowels of the old ruins. You can go ahead and just describe to me what Cror is like, what he's doing back at the headquarters.
I think he would be despondent. I suppose you could call that a successful mission, but he wouldn't, in that 3 of the most powerful Blood Knight agents have been eliminated. And seeing the expanse and the overwhelming power of the Legion, it would be very hard for him to remain hopeful. I think he would struggle with that. He would report to whoever he needs to report to, and make sure those names are heard. But I think then it wouldn't be too long before he drank himself into a stupor pretty regularly.
And that's how these 3 valiant, brave Blood Knights are remembered. Red, Tusk, and Malithus. They're remembered for having died in sacrifice, not in vain, as Cror is left to survive and make it back alive. You're remembered as heroes. As hard of a word as it is to say in this world, it's good enough. And that's where we're ending the session.
Nice.
Nice. I
And
lived.
yeah, the one survivor. This is Dice on Ice playing in Crifoth. This kind of tragedy of a story about the Blood Knights. And I'm gonna start signing out here. People can do their outros and whatnot. Start off with Megan.
Hey, I am the other half of this YouTube channel, Dice on Ice, and a co-creator writer for Crifoth. So yeah, thanks for the people who tuned in, and thanks for the players. I hope you guys really liked that kind of glimpse in. I thought it was very, very representative of what Crifoth is. And yeah, awesome game.
And Cameron.
Yeah, does it. Cool game. I enjoyed it. I don't have anything special. I don't have a YouTube channel or anything, so that's just me.
And Chad.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was a good time. Crifoth is always deadly. I think I'm always going to be a paladin from now on or something. Like, I gotta heal myself or something. But that's the fun of it. I like it. It's not forgiving. I like it.
And Lloyd.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's pretty grim, pretty miserable, easy to die, which are all things I enjoy. Yeah, thanks for the game.
All right, everyone have a good night.